Okay, so we have another very special guest with us on the show today. We'd like to welcome Betsy Baker, who played Linda in The Evil Dead. Thanks for joining us, Betsy.
Nice to be with you guys. The original Evil Dead.
Yeah, the best one.
The best one, that's right.
Okay, so I mean, a good one to always start off with is sort of, I mean, how did the role come about for you in the original? Obviously, we know it was sort of a project of Sam, Rob's, and Bruce's, but obviously it's not the usual way that a Hollywood would get a film up and running. So, I mean,
Right, right. Well, at the time, way back in the last century, and I want to apologize right if I've got a bit of a, no, I don't even have a bit of a cold. I have a really bad cold.
you
So
sound
my
fine.
voice is hopefully a lot sexier than it normally is. But um, back in the late 70s, I was living in Detroit, and my agent called me and said, there are three young men who want to meet you. They're thinking of doing a horror film. And I went, well, that's interesting. And they said, yeah, and they don't really want to have auditions here. So they want to know if it's okay if you meet them at a restaurant, which I thought was very strange, very odd. And I was, at that moment, then I wasn't feeling too great about it. So at the time, I was dating somebody, and I said, you come along with me so that if they do anything to me, I can scream and we can be saved. So it turns out we went to this well-known Italian restaurant right in the suburbs of Detroit. And I walked in, and here were these three young guys, harmless. They were all drinking Coca-Colas or root beers and batting each other with their straws. I mean, how can you go into a professional meeting like that in terms of like, oh, I might work with these people as a director and a producer and actor, and they're playing sword games with their straws. So as it turned out, it was a great little meeting, and I then proceeded to read for them a couple scenes over at Sam's parents' home in the basement, and it all went from there.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, did they sort of offer you the role off the bat, or was there sort of anyone else up for it?
I don't really know. I know that upon putting down their straws and trying to have a serious meeting, they were interested in having me for the role of Linda, and if I would be interested, and if I was interested in going to Tennessee for I think they had said 3.5 weeks, which turned out to be 7 weeks, and we still weren't done with the film. And I said yes to everything. And they said, well, we just want you to read a couple of scenes. Can you come over to Sam's house this weekend? And so I did. And then I think I got called a couple of days later and said they wanted to offer me the role.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. Obviously, we're both massive fans of the Evil Dead sort of like films and the obviously the new TV series. So it's a real pleasure to sort of like have the time to speak with the cast and the crew who sort of like made such great films that we love today. And I was wondering, obviously, because the Evil Dead, it's such a cult phenomenon and it's still being discovered by generations today. What's it like going to all the conventions and meeting so many fans?
Steve, that's a really good question because we've only been doing this about 14 or 15 years. As the three ladies of the Evil Dead, the three original actresses from the original Evil Dead, myself, Ellen Sandweiss, and Teresa Tilley. And I have to tell you, it is truly a humbling experience every time we go to these conventions because there are indeed fans who absolutely adore this film series, all three of them, and now, of course, the new Ash versus Evil Dead as well as the remake of Evil Dead. And you have to remember that for a long time, while this movie was gaining its speed as a cult film or a video nasty or a must see while you're in college and drunk or high or whatever, we were home with different careers, raising little children, all three of us ladies. And so we weren't even aware that this was such a huge cult phenomenon. It really took us by surprise. And to this day, whenever we're asked to go to a convention and we see the fans come up to our table and talk to us, and it's been great. It's been really, really fun. But it always amazes us every single time, every single event, every single convention.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, Betsy, obviously going back to filming the original film, I mean, describe a typical day on set from sort of waking up in the morning to sort of wrapping up at the end of the day.
Well, after about the first 3 days of shooting, of which takes place as the car is driving down the country road and across the bridge, which, by the way, was actually going to be demolished 2 days later after we shot there. So that really was a dangerous bridge to cross over. The rest of the shoot was at night. And that really plays havoc on anybody's, mind and body. So what normally would happen is we would sleep or maybe do a load of laundry during the day, take a long nap, get up around 5 or 6 p.m. when everything is beginning to get dark in Tennessee in the fall. And we would proceed to shoot from about 7 or 8 p.m. until about 7 or 8 in the morning. And then obviously, when the sun is coming up and daybreak is coming and the birds are chirping and the mailman is ringing the doorbell, et cetera, that's when we're trying to sleep. So those days, and that went on for 6 or 7 weeks, literally.
You must be pretty tired at the end of it.
Pretty tired. Everybody was pretty exhausted. There's a funny moment. We talk a lot about it at the conventions where Sam was we were waiting for a light setup. We were waiting for a fog setup or something. And Sam, the director, was over in the corner of the room talking to us and giving direction this whole time. And all of a sudden he stopped talking and we just kind of looked over at him and he was sound asleep. I mean, he was just so incredibly tired himself. He just literally mid-direction, mid-discussion, just conked out completely. So, and you have to remember, that cabin was really there, but it had no electricity, no heat, no running water. There were no hot coffee, no bathrooms. So that's where it was, in the woods, and that's where we shot.
I mean, what was it like working for Sam at sort of like the first step on the ladder of his career? You know, he's gone on to make huge mega hits such as Spider-Man and he made the last Oz film, which you appeared in, didn't you? You were reunited with him.
Yeah, we did a short scene in Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yeah,
and that was lovely. Sam was and is a wonderful gentleman.
yeah.
And he actually took the controls as director, but in a very gracious and humble way. I don't recall him ever raising his voice. And believe me, after 3, 4, 5 weeks of bitter cold and dampness, and again, no bathrooms, no heat, no real comfort creatures, or creatures of comfort, I guess. Never raised his voice, never got angry. He was determined to get every shot that he wanted. He did not let go of anything that he desired. We did it till it was right. We shot it till there was no more film in the camera. We, despite how bad the conditions were, he was steadfast. And I have to tell you, I would work with him again in a heartbeat.
So if he was like, right, we're going to bring back Linda for the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show.
Oh my God, from your mouth to God's ears. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd love to see all the characters come back, but especially those from the original movie. That would be such a great callback.
That would be just a lot of fun, and there's so many ways they could do that. Of course, I've made my own list in my head, but there's so many ways they could do it and get away with it, and it may happen. Who knows? I know they've just signed on for their second season, but that would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, to have the original characters back would absolutely be fantastic. I think it would be like a record-breaking ratings episode, without a doubt. And luckily, obviously now with advancements in special effects, you wouldn't have to put those, glass contact lenses in again?
Pretty much. I mean, they tried to tell us they weren't, but they were just really hard acrylic. I mean, when you tapped them, it was like tapping literally a porcelain coffee cup or a teacup. They were hard. They weren't moldable, and they did not move like people say. Oh well, they were just contact lenses. What's the big deal? No. They were white. You could not see through them when you actually inserted them in between your upper and your lower eyelid, which is what we had to do. We didn't insert them or just kind of gently place them onto our eyeball. we had to insert them into our upper and then lift the lower lid and, brim it over the contact. And then because they were they were hard and they were of some sort of acrylic, it also did not allow air to get to your eyeball, which, believe it or not, we all have to have air get to our eyeballs. Who knew? So we could not wear them for over 5 or 10 minutes. And a couple of times, I will have to say that maybe Sam and Rob Tapper did forget to watch the clock. And what happens then is your eye gets very dry, and then it becomes very difficult to remove them. That was a challenge, more than once. And all the scenes that we did, especially there was a night when we did the scene of Linda running with a sword made by the infamous Tom Sullivan at Bruce, running toward Bruce and then attempting to stab him. That all had to be carefully choreographed out because obviously it was a real sword, number one. And number two, obviously I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing. And so we sort of had to do this little choreographed dance so that if I did miss my step, Bruce could either catch me or run the other way or, try to, dip and tuck. But that was a little dicey.
I mean, do you ever cross paths with Bruce or any of the other? I know obviously you and the ladies of Evil Dead are still in contact, but do you ever cross paths with them with Bruce at conventions and that?
Yes, we do. We just actually worked with him in Chicago just earlier this fall, and we did see him at the premiere just a couple of weeks ago here in Los Angeles at the Ash vs. Evil Dead premiere. I know he travels back and forth, so we don't see him as much as we want, but yeah, we run into him all the time.
It must be sort of crazy sitting there, when you're all together and thinking, that was what, 35, 36 years ago now, and you're here today, you're at like the premiere of the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show. The franchise is still going strong.
It's pretty amazing, and I will tell you, a lot of times at conventions or such, we all get together and have dinner together. And I don't think there's been a dinner. There's been a lot of laughs, a lot of jokes, a lot of fun, but there's always been a really lovely toast made at every meal that we have been together at, where we are grateful and amazed to be still together and being with each other's company. So that's kind of nice.
I mean, what we'll do now, Betsy, we'll let you get on with your day. I just want to see if Steve's got anything else to ask you. Steve?
I was just going to ask if have you seen the remake of Evil Dead?
Yes, I have seen the remake of Evil Dead. Yes, I have.
Did you enjoy it? Oh, I mean, I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Well, pardon me. Let me just say that I've always felt that a remake is pretty much an exact replica of something that's already been made.
Yeah.
If I'm going to remake a chocolate cake, it's pretty much going to be the same chocolate cake that I've made. I did not personally find this to be true. I know that there were a number of young adults that went off to a cabin for a weekend, but for an entirely different purpose in the remake. I have to tell you, as much as I've seen the original Evil Dead, there are parts and there are moments when I still jump and I still yelp out because I have forgotten that something is going to pop out of a door or a window, or somebody is going to raise from a prone position to sitting up. In a lot of horror movies today, it's just bombarded with a lot of violence and a lot of, not to say that the original Evil Dead did not have at that time some epic violence and some really graphic violence. In today's standards, it's fairly milquetoast, it's fairly sublime. But I just felt the remake was different than I was expecting.
Yeah, I suppose it's more of a reimagining rather than a remake, wasn't it? I mean,
I suppose that's a really good term.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I enjoyed it, but then again, I suppose you've got different views considering you were in the original. I'm sure if someone remade something I did, then I would probably have different views as well. But all right, Betsy. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak to us, and also, thank you for being a very unnerving Deadite in the Evil Dead series.
You are welcome. It was my pleasure on all accounts. Are you still there, Steve?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, Betsy, well, thank you so much, and have a great day. And
oh, thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
There must be some spell I can say to undo all this. The other first thing I gotta do is some cardio, because my heart is jackhammering like a quarterback on prom night. Here's the plan. We bust in there, fight through the carnage, let the boomstick do the talking. Things get hairy, use your bottle.
I don't think it's a very good weapon, Jefe. You had to stab like 50 times.
I was sharpening it for you. Now, come on. You ready?
I'm ready.